This is Nightly Business Report with Tyler Matheson and Sue Herrera.
Employment puzzle. The jobless rate is falling and the labor market is tightening. So why are raises still hard to come by?
Record week. The market heads into the weekend at all-time highs, and our market monitor has a list of stocks he says could go even higher.
When seconds count, one startup's bright idea to solve one of 911's biggest problems and help bring the emergency system into the 21st century. Those stories and more tonight on Nightly Business Report for Friday, June 2nd. Good evening, everybody, and welcome. I'm Sue Herrera.
I'm Bill Griffith, and tonight for Tyler Matheson, coming to you once again from the New York Stock Exchange, where stocks close the week at records. That's where we begin this evening. The Dow, the Nasdaq, the S&P 500, all at their highest levels ever tonight, and it came despite a mixed jobs report. We'll have more on that in a moment. Investors apparently remain encouraged by global economies and corporate profits that are showing signs of strength. And as a result, they're plowing more money into stocks. Here are the closing numbers from this Friday. The Dow Jones Industrial Average added 62 points, finished at 21,206. The Nasdaq was up by 58, and the S&P gained 9. And it was the second straight week of gains for all three major indexes, Sue.
And Bill, now to that jobs report, which was a bit of a head scratcher. The jobless rate hit a 16-year low. That's the good news. But hiring slowed in May, with the number of jobs created coming in below expectations. According to the Labor Department, non-farm payrolls increased by 138,000. The unemployment rate fell to 4.3%, the lowest since 2001. So after a strong start to the year, job creation has cooled a bit over the past few months. Hampton Pearson explains why.
The May slowdown in hiring was not the only surprise in the latest government jobs report. Downward revisions for March and April pushed the three-month average to just 121,000 new hires per month, a sharp decline from the 181,000 average over the last year.
The economy has to shift what it's doing from after the financial crisis and bubble, and that's a slow process. And that's just where we are.
There were enough new hires to push the unemployment rate down to 4.3%, the lowest since the spring of 2001. It happened because of a big jump in the number of persons who stopped looking for work. But the Trump White House points out the broadest unemployment gauge, the U6, fell to 8.4% in May, the lowest since the fall of 2007.
We're not worried about slowing job growth. When you look at how many people we've brought back into the workforce and you look at the U6 number, the fact that the U6 number is down by 1% since Inauguration Day, we're clearly bringing people back in the job force.
Healthcare and restaurants produced nearly half of all the new hires. Construction added 11,000 new workers, and stabilizing energy prices helped create nearly 7,000 new jobs in the energy sector. In contrast, government produced the biggest job losses. Wages remain stalled, up just 2.5% over the last 12 months. That, leading economists say, gets back to the issue of slow growth.
We're still down a couple of million jobs from where we should be. The economy still has a long way to go in terms of a complete recovery, and I think we've got room to grow.
But most Wall Street economists still expect a Fed rate hike when monetary policymakers meet in 2 weeks. Economists say even at May's reduced pace, hiring is running ahead of population growth, and the unemployment rate could fall even further. For Nightly Business Report, I'm Hampton Pearson in Washington.
Let's turn to Anthony Chen now for more analysis on today's jobs report and what it might mean for the Fed and any rate hikes the rest of this year. Anthony's chief economist at Chase. Good evening, sir. How are you?
Great.
There are those who feel that maybe we're seeing a lagging jobs increase number each month because we have a tight labor market. In other words, employers just can't find enough people qualified to hire. Do you think that's what's going on as well here?
Well, I think that's certainly part of the picture. When you get that unemployment rate down to 4.3%, you really are stretching to find more workers. But I think the fascinating thing about today's employment report, that the unemployment rate actually went down not because we're gaining more jobs. The survey that's used to compute the unemployment rate reported a decline in the number of jobs by more than 200,000, but it was rather the plunge in the number of people that are in the labor force by over 400,000. I think that that's the reason why the unemployment rate went down. That's usually not good news for the lower unemployment rate. And for wages, I think the reason why wages are not rising faster is because we're starting to pull from that underutilized labor. You saw those number of people that are working part-time but rather be working more hours. That number went down 53,000, but more importantly, it is down 1.2 million in the last 12 months. That's actually good news because we can actually continue to expand this labor market without necessarily seeing so much inflation that the Federal Reserve is going to panic.
Anthony, what do you think about the sectors of the economy? What does it tell you about the economy as a whole for those sectors that actually did see job growth?
Well, I'm encouraged by the fact that a lot of those people that are being hired for temporary basis are now starting to find themselves permeating into the regular economy. And that's very healthy because it gives the employers an opportunity to so-called test drive these employees, and then they sort of become full-time employees or more ingrained out there. I'm also encouraged with the healthcare sector because that's a sort of a growing sector out there. With regard to the retail, there's that transition as you're moving away from the brick and mortar more towards the internet. So you're going to see that transition. So I'm not overly concerned about that. But by and large, I think this was a temporary pause. I think we will see future months when you once again start to gain jobs closer to 200,000. This was a little bit of a pause.
Of course, we look at these numbers closely because we know the Fed watches them very carefully. What do you think they think of these numbers, and how will it impact any Fed movement that we might see the rest of the year in terms of rate increases?
I think that right now the economy is humming and doing pretty well. The Atlanta Federal Reserve that have done research on how accurate they are in terms of forecasting economic growth, they just updated their numbers today. They're looking for 3.4% growth in the second quarter. So that, of course, is almost 3 times faster than what we saw in the first quarter, even after the upward revision. So if you're going to get anything close to 3% in the second quarter, guess what? On June 14th, the Federal Reserve has only one option, and that is to raise short-term interest rates, irrespective of what we saw today in the employment report.
Maybe a rate increase on Flag Day. We will see. Anthony, Chen, and Chase, always good to see you. Thanks for joining us tonight.
Well, Bill, that labor shortage is hitting America's classrooms. The need for teachers is growing nationwide, and that's especially true in Detroit. Kate Rodgers reports.
All right, how's everybody doing today?
Detroit native Donovan Gardner is following in his mother's footsteps as a special education teacher in Motor City.
Well, it was something that I knew I could wake up every day and do well.
But working in the city's public school district, which is 250 teachers short at this time, according to the Detroit Federation of Teachers, is challenging. Gardner is working with 25 special needs students each day.
I service students from 2nd grade all the way up to 8th grade. So I have a pretty huge caseload.
Detroit is also competing with other nearby districts for talent and is at a disadvantage due to its conditions and compensation.
If we can provide a competitive wage for our teachers, then I think that will help to attract quality teachers, high quality teachers to our school district.
But the issue extends far beyond Motown. Each year, some 300,000 public school teachers are needed around the country, according to the American Federation of Teachers. But a shortage is intensifying nationwide.
If these trends continue, we'll basically be 100,000 teachers short for every year after 2025.
The AFT says the shortage is amplified in rural areas and in inner cities like Detroit. The types of teachers needed run the gamut from special education to history, science, math, and more. Part of the problem is funding for public schools as well as perception of the profession, but one major reason behind the shortage is compensation. Last year, the national average public school teacher's salary was $60,000 a year, according to the AFT. Benefits do vary depending on location, level of education, and role. Salaries for teachers in Detroit range from $37,000 a year to $65,000 annually, according to the city's union, which is hopeful its new Board of Education will usher in change.
I think we're finally at the point right now where we can start talking about the turnaround. I surely hope that the issue with class size and the issue with the lack of teacher service is an issue of the past. And I look forward to working very hard with the current school district to alleviate this issue.
But despite the hurdles that come along with the job, back in the classroom, Gardner says the impact he's making is well worth it.
That's what's the most beneficial to me, the love I get from the kids and seeing them develop and actually teaching them.
For Nightly Business Report, I'm Kate Rodgers, Detroit.
And you can read more about the teacher shortage on our website, nbr.com. Still ahead, taking stock. With the market at all-time highs, it may be tough to find companies to buy, so our Market Monitor has some suggestions for you. Illinois could become the first state to be given a junk rating. S&P warned that the move could come next month if it doesn't resolve its partisan gridlock. That state has not had a budget for 2 years now because of a standoff between the governor and the legislature. Pensions and other entitlements are making it hard for Illinois to close its budget gap.
Well, there's been a lot of talk about coal lately, and today the Energy Information Administration reported that the amount of coal used to make electricity was at the lowest level in more than 30 years. Cheap natural gas has been eating into coal's share of power generation. Consumption is now down 35% from its peak back in 2008, and that decline is being felt especially hard in Kentucky, where most of the coal mined goes to produce electricity.
The New York Attorney General is accusing ExxonMobil of misleading shareholders on the issue of climate change. The accusation was made in a legal filing, and it's the latest development in the investigation into the company's role in accounting for its potential cost. The New York Attorney General claims that Exxon used secret internal figures that were lower than public numbers between the years 2011 and 2014, when the current Secretary of State Rex Tillerson was Exxon's chief executive. Exxon called the allegations inaccurate and irresponsible.
Well, it's no secret that Twitter is trying to get more people to tweet these days, but it's also trying to attract more advertisers to increase revenue. And to do that, it has to give brands what they want, and they want information about you. So Twitter is trying to figure out who you are and what you like based on things like your browsing history. And it uses that information to create your profile, which you can now look at and update. And with so much personal data out there already, you would think that they would know all there is to know about you. But as Eric Chen shows us tonight, that's not always the case.
They think I'm single and a single parent.
I think I'm retired.
Number of children, 1, got that wrong.
That's wrong.
4.
A big city mom, corporate mom, female head of household.
This is hilarious.
Are you a big city mom?
No.
Are you a trendy mom?
I am not a trendy mom.
Look at these. What's interesting here is they don't know that you're a mom.
They don't. I'm a corporate man?
It's really ridiculous.
Baby products, definitely not.
Definitely not Birkenstocks.
Not Birkenstocks.
Okay, I do buy Ben & Jerry's. I love me some Cherry Garcia.
What about
granola bars? That's me.
I'm a bit of a gadget geek.
They think you're an affluent baby boomer who's a senior who speaks Spanish. They think he is a male head of household.
Yeah.
They think you are a wife. I don't think you're a senior.
Possibly.
NASCAR superfans, that's us.
Wait, really?
No.
Are you healthy and fit?
I don't think so.
Do you own a GMC?
No.
Do you own a Volkswagen?
No.
Do you own a Toyota?
No.
Are you an auto parts buyer?
No.
No.
I don't even own a car.
Retail category, standard retail. That's true. Very boring.
Look at how many auto things
Are you in the market for a car?
He's always looking for cars.
Okay, they think you're a fall fashionista.
Do they really? They're out of their minds.
They're wrong.
But I need oral care. That one's really disturbing. I would consider myself a very good brusher and flosser.
I would agree with that, Landon. Eric Chen joins us right now here at the New York Stock Exchange, and they thought I was a millennial that buys a lot of milk and eggs, but they got part of that right.
Part of it.
How'd they get it so wrong?
because this is what happens with big data. It's what you're doing with your credit cards, what browser sites you're looking at, what's on your mobile apps, so they can figure out really obvious things. And some of it was right. Like if you got a particular brand of jeans last week, they can get that. Yeah. But then they're trying to infer the rest of it.
I see.
And you put all these equations together, and it doesn't necessarily work out the best, right, as we're seeing that.
Yeah, but what's the upside for Twitter here? I mean, why give us access to, although it was highly entertaining, but why give us access to all of that data?
So it's a good point. So when we talked to the company, their statement said, look, we're leading the industry in privacy. We want users to be able to see how we're using their data. They can get out of certain categories if they don't like it. They can just simply opt out of the whole thing altogether. So in that sense, they are being an industry leader. The other real upside for them, though, is they're hoping that users are going to do the work for them by saying, look, like in Bill's case, I'm not a millennial, but maybe I do want to get ads about eggs and milk. So if I can check off one thing but keep checked on another box. So they're hoping that, especially the younger people out there that don't mind the privacy issues, that they'll actually help Twitter sell them better.
How long have they been doing this? And how much do they get right?
So they get a good amount right. In our informal estimates, it's about a quarter to a third is right. So, 2/3 to 3/4 wrong. They've been tracking you all this time. The only thing that's new is now you can see how they've tracked you. They've just opened up these settings a couple weeks ago, but the tracking's been happening for years.
Nothing about bourbon, and that just didn't make any sense.
They missed a lot of the important stuff about you.
Yes, they did.
Yeah.
Eric Chimmy, great
You
story.
got it, Bill.
Thanks. Sue?
Plus, he helped me update my settings. Shares of Canada Goose fly high. That's where we begin tonight's market focus. In its first earnings report since going public in March, the company known for its luxury jackets reported a smaller than expected loss and revenue that was helped by strong e-commerce demand. Canada Goose said it expects sales for the year to rise in the mid to high teens on a percentage basis. The shares soared more than 15% to $21.64. Merger talks between ConAgra and Pinnacle Foods have reportedly fallen apart. After the bell last night, Reuters reported ConAgra, which makes the likes of Peter Pan peanut butter, approached the owner of Duncan Hines Baking Products about a possible combination. But according to new reports, the deal is already off the table due to disagreements over price. ConAgra shares fell almost 1% to $39.59. Meanwhile, shares of Pinnacle Foods got hit harder, falling 6% to $61.92. Buffalo Wild Wings CEO stepping down by the end of this year. The announcement follows the chicken wing chain's annual meeting, where shareholders voted to add 3 members to its board of directors, all proposed by activist investor Marcato Capital Management. Marcato holds a nearly 10% stake in the company and has been urging the CEO to resign, while also pushing for structural change. Shares rose more than 1% to $152.35. Bill?
Meanwhile, home improvement retailer Lowe's raised its quarterly dividend by 17% to 41 cents a share. The yield on that stock now stands at 2%. Shares of Lowe's were lower, though, by 21 cents to $80.22. And shares of Workday got a lift after the cloud software developer reported solid quarterly revenue. Company also beat analysts' profit estimates and raised its revenue forecast for the full year. The new outlook is based on the company's expectation for strong subscriber growth. Shares were up more than 2% today to close at $104.41.
And it's time now for our market monitor, who likes stocks that he says are reflective of what's happening in the economy right now. Joining us is Barry James, portfolio manager of the James Balanced Golden Rainbow Fund. Welcome back, Barry. Good to see you again, as always.
Hi, glad to be with you.
Let's start out with your first pick, which is Western Digital. Why?
Well, anytime we look at a stock, we want a company that is relatively cheap compared to either its industry or the market as a whole. We want good earnings and growing earnings, and we want to see the price of the stock going up. And it meets all of those 3 criteria. But also, it's in a niche that we know is going to continue to boom, and that is storage space on your computers. We've all seen that we run out of space all the time, and we need more. And Western Digital can supply that. And in a growing economy, that's likely to be one of the stocks that can do pretty well.
Barry, you're looking at a growth of construction spending in this country, and therefore you say, ergo, you like United Rentals, right?
That's right. The economy, as your earlier guest was pointing out, is probably going to be okay. And one of the areas that we need to, really take advantage of are companies that are involved with infrastructure or with the industrial area. United Rentals is the largest rental, and I was just talking with a landscaper today, and he says he never buys, he only rents. So that's good for them. And again, they meet the same criteria of being fairly cheap and all. And the company is run very well, has a good balance sheet, and we think that it's got good prospects. It hadn't gone up a lot this year, so maybe you're getting it a little bit cheaper than you might some other stocks right now.
And we'll finish up with Trinity Industries.
Yes, Trinity is a real, great stock in terms of meeting the criteria that I've already talked about. But it's into railroads, it's into wind energy, it's into road construction. If there's anything, being constructed out there, they're involved with it in some way, shape, or form, it seems like. And we think that, they've got their eye on the prize, as it were. They're running things lean and mean, and they've got a ways to go, especially if the guys in Congress do something in the next 40 days. I bet they're going to spend some more money, and probably on infrastructure.
Mm-hmm.
Certainly one of the leaders in this market has been technology overall, especially the FANG stocks, the big guys out there, the Amazons, the Facebooks, and so forth. Is that encouraging to you, or does that worry you?
It worries me, to be quite frank. What we've seen is this kind of upside-down market where stocks that are really very expensive, have very poor earnings, and they haven't shown a lot of price appreciation, have been outperforming just the opposite. And we like those just the opposite ones that are cheap with good earnings. So that's a very strange thing. And then you find in the 12 months ending March, companies that were losing money, they were not profitable, did 16% better than companies that were profitable. And that's just not a sustainable situation at all.
That's why we have your stock picks, so that our viewers can make a little money. Barry, thank you as always. Barry James with the James Balanced Golden Rainbow Fund.
Coming up, meet the entrepreneurs who are developing a technology and building a company that may have the power to save a lot of lives. Their bright idea coming up next. Here's a quick look at what to watch for next week. On Monday, investors will have their first chance to react to new data on cancer research following the world's biggest cancer research meeting over the weekend. Tuesday, CEOs from the Business Roundtable release their outlook for the economy. Thursday, the European Central Bank meets, and that's what we're watching for next week, Sue.
Bill, as you know, your smartphone probably knows where you are, but our aging 911 system wasn't built to read all the information on your phone, which makes for a dangerous equation. 70% of the roughly 240 million 911 calls that we make each year come from cell phones. That's why two young entrepreneurs in New York City are working to fix that problem.
Where you're saying you're at and where the phone shows you're at is about 5 miles apart.
It's a problem that's dogged 911 operators. Built in the 1960s, 911 works well with landline phones, but call on a cell phone and 911 gets only an approximate location, often using nearby cell towers, even if the call is made at a 911 call center.
It's roughly 4,000 meters away from where we're actually at.
That's why Joe Thomas's staff at the Sussex County Emergency Operations Center in Delaware is testing Rapid SOS, software allowing the existing 911 system to read more data coming from smartphones.
It pinpoints it right on top of the building where we're located.
Michael Martin got the idea after he felt like he'd been followed home in New York City one night back in 2012.
911 call takers are doing heroic work in light of that challenge. But we're giving them basically no data to manage those calls.
In grad school, he teamed with Nicholas Horlick, who'd volunteered taking calls on an emergency hotline during college.
It was the same type of problem of someone's calling in, they're in distress, and no idea where they are.
So they co-founded Rapid SOS. But perhaps more important than their tech know-how was the 4 years they spent taking input from government officials and many of the 6,500 911 call centers. In 2016, they released a free app called Haven. Last December, Harris and Dandria got lost when a thick, damp fog rolled in as he hiked in North Carolina's Blue Ridge Mountains.
Your mind just goes into frantic mode.
So he tapped the Haven app on his phone.
Operator told me to stay right where I was, and a park ranger would be there within 15 minutes, and they were.
Almost 20% of the nation's 911 call centers are using Rapid SOS, but it may cover most of the country by year's end. For some, it can't happen soon enough. In 2014, an FCC study said fixing 911 location issues could save more than 10,000 lives a year.
Congress talked about it, but there hasn't been any legislation, let alone any passage of something that would make a difference.
Tom Wheeler is one of 3 former FCC chairmen who have invested in Rapid SOS.
They have built a platform that can be applicable in multiple kinds of situations, not just 911 calls.
Those situations, upgrades to home security, car monitors like OnStar, and wearable health devices are where Rapid SOS hopes to make money.
If this were on a health wearable device, this screen's going to have health information, heart rate, blood pressure. If it's coming from a connected car, now it's a picture of the car. Where was the impact? Airbags deployed? Who was wearing a seatbelt? How many people were in the vehicle?
The cost? About $3 to $10 a month. It could be a small price to pay.
The enormity of what it is we work on here, I think that affects everybody on our team. I mean, that's what really drives all of us.
This is technology that's going to have the power to save a lot of lives.
Rapid SOS expects to begin rolling out upgrades to those consumer products later this year. And there's more it can do for the 911 system as well. If a phone has a camera, it can put out a video feed, which a 911 operator can get to first responders, giving them a chance to see what they're getting before they actually arrive on the scene. It's a great idea. That does it for us tonight on Nightly Business Report. I'm Sue Herrera. Have a great weekend, Bill.
You too, Sue. Everybody else, you have a great weekend, too. We'll see you on Monday.